Hey guys, so this video is going to be my April reading wrap up. I'm really happy with what I got read in April. Read some things that are a little bit different, really enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm filming in this location purely because where I normally film is an absolute tip at the moment, because I recorded a book haul the other day and let's just say it looks like Waterstones threw up all over my bedroom floor. So yeah, couldn't film there, so I'm here. So I'm sorry if it's a little bit shaky because I am sat on my bed, so I'm hoping that it won't be too shaky, but we'll see. So the first book I actually started reading in March, but didn't finish reading it until April, and this is an advanced copy of Hope and Red by John Scovron. This one was very interesting because this showed up completely unsolicited for review, wasn't expecting it, didn't know anything about it, it just arrived, and when I first opened it I thought, oh, that's quite a cool cover, but it's not really a me kind of book, it's not something that I would normally gravitate to, so I didn't think I was going to pick it up. And then the next thing I knew, after I finished my previous read, I was picking this up. I was so intrigued by it, and I'm so glad that I didn't write it off and didn't just like give it away or something, because I absolutely loved it. It was probably my favourite book of the month, maybe tied with another book, but it was completely unexpected, and I think that's why I liked it as much as I did, because I didn't expect to like it. Writing was fabulous, even though it's an adult fantasy. I don't think it's too adult. It's not too complicated. It's not too bogged down. So it was just so good. I liked that it started off, we meet the two characters, Hope and Red, when they're small. We learn their backstories. We're not just told their backstories, we're kind of shown their backstories. There's no info dumping. But it's just done in such a way that you just love these characters, but it spends just the right amount of time, I think, on their backstories, and then obviously when they eventually cross paths. Hope was a very interesting character. Her whole village was massacred. She was the only survivor, and she ends up training with an order that's kind of like monks, and the leader of this order trains her in secret because women aren't supposed to be able to learn it. And Red, he came from a sort of well-off background, and then when his parents die, he ends up basically in slums, and he wants to become the greatest thief ever. It was just so good. Highly recommend this one, guys. It just blew my mind, in honesty. I absolutely loved it from the moment I picked it up to the moment it ended. Loved it. Cannot wait to see where this series goes, because it left it in such a way that I'm just on edge, and I cannot wait to continue that series. 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend that one. Can't actually recommend it enough because I freaking loved it. The next book that I read was for part of a blog tour. I've already reviewed this on my channel, so I won't go into too much detail. But that is Flawed by Cecilia Ahern. This is her first young adult book, and it surprises me that she's normally an adult contemporary writer, so I'm very surprised that when she did a young adult book that she did a dystopian and not a young adult contemporary. It was a good read for me. When I started it, I hated the main character, couldn't stand her one whit. She drove me demented. I thought she was very naive, very foolish. Couldn't stand her. But I think I can see why she was that way. She was a product of her society. I get it. It was very fast read. I think this can go either one or two ways for people. Either die-hard fans of dystopian are going to love it because it's a dystopian, and they love all dystopians. I don't mean that in a bad way. Or die-hard fans of dystopian are going to think that it doesn't match to other and better dystopians. For me, it was okay. I liked it more towards the end. It picked up more for me towards the end. And I'm definitely interested in reading the conclusion, which I think is called Perfect, that comes out next year. I want to see how things wrap up, but it wasn't a favourite. I ended up giving it like 3.5 out of 5 maybe. The next book that I read was The Obsession by Nora Roberts, and I loved this one too. This one's probably like joint favourites for me with Hope and Red. this month, because I love Nora Roberts' books. I've made no secret that I love Nora Roberts' books, and this is one of her sort of romantic suspense thriller type books, and I've read a couple of these now, and my favourite remains Whiskey Beach. Last year I read The Liar, which was good, but wasn't quite as good as Whiskey Beach. I've still got a few of hers actually like this. I've got quite a few that I need to read, but this one I loved. I don't want to spoil it for you guys. I mean, you find out stuff in at the very beginning, but when Naomi is young, her family is basically torn apart by this crime, and it's quite a shocking crime, and instead of being the victims of the crime, basically her father was the perpetrator. He caused he was basically I don't want to spoil it, but oh my god, he was the person that tore their family apart basically, and I like how you saw it from their point of view. Obviously he had his victims, but you also saw how it tore his own family apart and how it changed the course of their lives. So that was a really interesting take to have it on that side of the crime. If I'm explaining this really poorly, I'm so sorry. But it also affects Naomi in that she doesn't form normal relationships with people. She doesn't trust people anymore. They soon find out who she is and who she's related to, and it changes the dynamic of relationships. You know, relationships, friendships, anything. They find out who she is and things change a little bit. So she's changed her name. And she's just bought herself a house. She's given herself roots, because normally she's a photographer. She flips here, there and everywhere. She hasn't got any roots. And then she meets Xander. She ends up picking up a stray dog. She spends loads of money on fixing up this house. And she's like, why am I doing this? But then her past comes back to haunt her, and murders start happening in and around where she's now living. It was so good. My only criticism is I feel the end was very glossed over, very rushed. You had this great suspense building. You had a few points of view in sort of the killer's perspective, a few scenes in the killer's perspective, sorry, and the tension was racking up, and suddenly it's just over very quickly. I think it could have built just to have that ending pulled out a little bit longer, because I missed that. But it was really, really good, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Would highly recommend picking this one up as well. Then I read Fractured by Sherry Schmidt. I read the first book, Fateful. I reread it last year on audio, and then before that I read it quite a while ago, and I sort of wanted to read the next book in the series to make progress towards finishing it, and I was a little bit disappointed with this one in that I didn't enjoy it as much as Fateful. Ethan, the hero in this, really drove me nuts. Didn't really like him very much at all. I thought Danielle had no backbone. She didn't fight for anything that she really thought. She would get frustrated that she couldn't do all of these things, but then didn't really do anything about it. She was very weak-willed. And then I was a little bit weirded out. If something traumatic happens to them as a couple, very traumatic, and yet no one seems overly upset by it. And then right at the end, they just decide to try for this thing again, and I'm just like, what? I just found it a little bit weird, and I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one. It took a little bit of a weird turn, so I gave it half marks. And then the next book that I read was actually on my Kindle, and it was the latest book in the Sullivans series by Bella Andre, and this is Now That I Found You. This was released this month. This is, I can't even remember what number book in the Sullivans, but it's the first book in the New York Sullivans, I think. You guys know I love the Sullivan series. Bella Andre is not, I wouldn't say a guilty pleasure, because I love reading her books. She writes really cute, romantic, contemporary stories, and they're basically, it's my favourite way to read a contemporary romance story, in that it focuses on a fairly large family, and then each person in that family gets their own book. And we had the Seattle Sullivans. I can't remember where the other Sullivans were. was it Seattle? Was it Seattle, San Francisco, and now New York? Basically, there's this huge family, and yeah, they each get their own stories. This one was a really, really cute one. As with any series, there are books you like more than others. I really, really enjoyed this one. It was just maybe a little bit too insta-lovey for me personally. That was really the only thing about it. Rosa is like a reality TV star. Cameras follow her everywhere. But her privacy has been invaded in that a member of her camera crew took pictures of her basically when she thought she was alone. And they've been sold and they're everywhere, you know, these naked pictures, you know, like with celebrity scandals. So they're absolutely everywhere, and she's running away from them, trying to get over it. She's a little bit heartbroken. She obviously feels invaded, and then she meets Drake, and he's an artist that has kind of secluded himself away in a little village, hoping to get his inspiration to paint back. But he never paints women because of his father's messed up relationship with his mother, but he feels the urge to paint Rosa, and their relationship goes from there. It was really, really cute. I would recommend the Sullivan series for anybody that loves contemporary romance. The first ever one in the Sullivans wasn't my favourite, so anybody that tries them, read the first one, but stick with it. Stick with the series because it got better after the first one. I still really enjoyed the first one, but then onwards got better. So I gave that one 4 out of 5. And then the last book that I read was a reread for me, and it was The Exile by Diana Gabaldon, and this is an Outlander graphic novel essentially. It doesn't cover the whole of the first book, Outlander. It probably goes up to maybe about halfway, but you get some little extra scenes in there. You get Jamie's point of view and things like that. And I reread this because I was also rewatching season 1 of Outlander. Season 2 is now out, but I haven't been watching it because I hadn't read book 2 yet, which is what I'm doing now. I was refreshing myself, and I'm now currently reading Dragonfly and Amber. So this got 5 out of 5 because I love being back in the Outlander world, but maybe in a little bit of a different way. So that's everything that I read in April, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Happy reading.